Yeah,
Okay,
I know.
so here I am with my really good friend Marie Diamond. We've been friends for decades or whatever, and she's been in a couple of my movies. We've shared the stage together. You guys know her from The Secret and all of her great material that she's been teaching over the years. Chances are very good. You've even seen her live already, so you probably know her really well. I'll add her bio to this, but right now we're just talking about speaking and the speaking business.
Yeah.
And so what happened is I just started recording. Marie was about to share something with us, so we can kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because, I know there's a lot of beautiful speaker platforms and all, and people teaching it. And I've been in this business for more than 32 years. I've spoken in 35 countries for, if I actually added up, definitely about 200,000 people that have spoken for live on stages. And so, one of the things that I've always seen is that there are not a lot of very top female speakers, yeah, in the industry of self-help. And, there's like this whole way to do certain things, right? There's the old way, your pitch and all this. I never really used that same way to do the pitching, but I do believe I'm pitching my brand. Yeah. And so I always have a lot of people buying my products in the back, sometimes without literally mentioning the product. So
Right.
they just love so much the brand and information that they continue working with me. And so I have a really funny story about that. I just wanted to share. So in 2007, I was speaking at a big real estate expo event, and also the current president was there, and Tony Robbins, and there were many others, and I was also speaking. And so I had to speak three times, and the organization was like, Marie, you have to pitch a product. Now, I did have a product, but the first time I spoke, I forgot to pitch it. And to be honest, I didn't really know how to pitch. That's probably why I didn't mention it, right?
I've
So
been
I was
there.
like, yeah, I was just starting in the American journey of speakers. And so the second day, I was like, Marie, you have to really, nobody bought something, you have to pitch it. So I'm like, okay, guys, I have 15 minutes to pitch something, but I rather answer questions. So, and I said, there is a product in the back end, and I think it's around this price. If you want to know, you figure it out. Yeah. So then that same evening, the organizers came, Marie, this is really bad. You haven't sold anything, right? And, they get money from that part too. And he said, tomorrow you have to go and watch Raymond Aaron, who is like one of the best pitchers,
Right.
right, in the world. And I'm like, and you have to watch, Donald Trump speak, and these are good pitchers. I'm like, okay. So I go and watch them, and I'm like, "Oh, I cannot do this. Like, I'm like, I really cannot. This is not my style. I'm not going there. So in the Sunday afternoon, I speak a third time, and so again, I say to the people, look, there's a product in the back end. This is kind of a price. I gave like perhaps two lines, right? And I said, but I'd rather give more time for you to have questions and answers with me. So after I come out, and I was not smart enough to go backstage, I was like, okay, let me go with the people to where the open space is between conferences. And I get bombarded. I literally have like 500 people around me, like pulling on my clothes, on my hair, like, Marie, you want a picture? Want a picture? Now, The Secret already had come out, so we were very popular, but I had no idea how popular we were, really,
Right.
you know? And so suddenly I get a call from my husband. I'm in the midst, like, I cannot do anything. And people are, Marie, Marie, that is scanting my name, like yelling my name. And I'm like, okay, now I know what it is to be a film star. That's kind of what they said, right? And the second thing was I called the organizer, said, can you free me? So suddenly I get this big bodyguard, big guy, opens the line, pulls me out, brings me backstage, and I found out it's the bodyguard of Donald Trump.
Nice.
And so Donald Trump comes to me and said, who are you that you need my bodyguard? And I'm like, sir, I'm Marie Diamond. I just spoke. He said, yeah. So what do you do to get everybody so excited about you? And I'm like, well, I speak from my heart. And he was like, heart? Huh? Huh? Right? And I was like, okay, different style, right?
Right.
So now it was done that night. We have literally an event in the Trump Tower in the restaurant. Tony was there, Donald Trump was there, Raymond was there, like all the big speakers. Um, Carl Greenspan, the head of the Federal
Reserve.
Bureau,
Yeah, yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like a lot of top speakers. And I'm just like, small speaker, I think, right? So we found out that they had 3 days to change their buy, so what they wanted to buy. And so they asked, like, who is number three? Number three, Tony Robbins. And everyone was like, wow, that's weird, right? Number two, Donald Trump. Everyone was like, wow, what is
Right.
going on? Right? So number one, everybody thought it was Raymond Aaron because he killed it on stage. It was amazing. He offered with a product, he offered a free cruise. So I mean, it was a really good product, right? So they said, well, it's very unexpected because till this morning she hadn't sold anything. Number one is Marie Diamond, So a lot of people went back, changed their orders, and
Right.
added my order. Yeah. And so I was the number one speaker in revenue. So from that moment, I learned that if I speak with my heart, yeah,
Right.
and I am selling my brand instead of selling a product, yeah,
Right.
and that has always been since then what I've done. So it's a little bit different when I speak. I always speak for long term and I have very specific
Right.
ways to do things because I am trained. I have my first prize in theater and declamation at the National Conservatoire in Belgium. So I know very well how to use the stage. I was on stage since I was 5, literally singing solo, performing solo. So I really am very comfortable on stage. Yeah. But it's not always at what you sell at that moment, but selling your brand, yeah, getting people to love your brand, yeah. And I have students that are more than 30 years with me, yeah, because once they are connecting with you and they want to continue, that is ultimately better than a one-time sale, but years of sales that come from it as a speaker. So I have a different approach. I love to share that. I want to tell this story because that was the first time I understood there was the one way and there are other
Right.
ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and by the way, I think my feelings are much more like yours. It's one thing to sell a product, but it's another to build a relationship with people over time. And I
Yeah.
think that that relationship over time keeps them coming back again and again. And again, no disrespect to any other speaker who does things the way they do. And I know Raymond has an audience that follows him.
Oh,
Great speaker.
yeah.
But I think if we go for one sale, you might get one sale. But if you
Yeah.
go for the relationship, you'll have those sales over the years. And so if people are so inclined to trust you to buy something, make sure it's good. And then
Yeah.
make sure that they definitely have that connection with you. So I've got a couple questions. I love that story, by the way. That's just so much fun. And,
It's
and, and
super fun
and I love
story.
this idea of saying to Donald Trump, well, I just speak from the heart. So who knows? Maybe you got him elected because maybe he switched the way he does
I
things.
don't know.
Right?
Perhaps he changed something, I
Maybe.
don't know, right? But he was definitely not super happy that I won.
Of course, of course, of course. He's very competitive. But
Yes, yes.
let's talk about this for a minute. A little bit of a background. Like you and I have known each other for years, and I know that you didn't start as a speaker. How did you get started, and how did that sort of evolve?
Yeah. So I am a lawyer from background. So
Mm,
I'm a criminal lawyer in Belgium. And so, of course, I was, very comfortable already speaking in front of audiences because when I was 14, I actually studied opera, interesting enough, and because I had a good voice at that time. And one of the things to study opera, you have to do declamation and theater. And so when I started studying that, a few hours a week, every week in conservatoire, I loved that more than singing. So I kind of switched over completely. So I was a very, very shy person. I mean, literally the first time I was doing a declamation, like words, not just singing or dancing, because I was comfortable, but that speaking in front of an audience,
right.
I was crying. I was so shy, right? But, I started learning some really practical things, how to be comfortable, not just on stage, but also with bringing my voice forward. And so I had an amazing declamation teacher that helped me out with trusting my voice. And then, yeah, I went being a lawyer, I worked in government. I spoke with, audiences there, more from a professional perspective. But then I changed, and at 31, I started in the teaching about meditation, law of attraction, feng shui. And I set up my own conferences because in my country, there were no conferences on that level. Yeah, there was no self-help, no spiritual conferences, wellness, that did not exist. So I set up my own conferences. And within 6 months, I had at least per month 3,000 people coming to watch me
Wow.
speak. Yeah. And I was so comfortable in doing that. I was teaching, training, speaking in front of audiences. And so, yeah, that was like, for me, it was most important was connecting with the people. I love connecting. I love sharing knowledge, whatever knowledge. If it's from meditation to social media to how to train as a speaker, how to run business, how about leadership, I just love sharing. That's kind of my thing. And so if you go from that perspective that you're just sharing, but I do remember the first time I started as a self-help teacher, you can
Right.
say that. That word did not exist at that time. Um, I remember setting up the chairs in a conference room, 40 chairs, and nobody showed up. And not
I've
even my
had that too.
mom. Yeah,
Yeah.
that too, for sure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not even my mom, not even my husband. But I did what I came to do. I spoke for an empty room
Right.
because I thought it's a practice. Yeah. And so, and I just visualized that millions of people one day would see me speak, right? And then the next week I set it up again. Two people came, and within 6 months we had 3,000 people in the room, right?
Wow.
So it is just, and this is before social media and before Google ads and whatever, right? So it was just mouth of, referral, right? Mouth to mouth. And so for me, it was like, I just did it myself. I did not know there were trainings about this. I mean, I had very intense training, like for between my 14 and my 25 at the conservatoire, really knowing how to use my voice, how to use my presence, how to create an atmosphere. So for sure, I had a huge background and tips that sometimes a lot of top teachers that I mentor personally are really happy with the way you connect with the audience. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Right.
super, super important. And so then I came to America 8 years ago and I had to start from scratch. So I started again setting up my own conferences. And then I became part of the Transformation Leadership Council, where The Secret was filmed. And by being part of that, I started being asked to be at events. And I figured out there were specific events around self-help and wellness that existed. And yeah, of course, The Secret brought me into many other countries, countries that sometimes had no idea about self-help. I mean, I spoke a lot in East Europe, in Russia, all over the world, and that's still expanding. Like this year, we do Japan, we do Abu Dhabi, Rajit, so Dubai. So it just I love so much speaking, yeah, because for me, speaking is sharing, yeah.
100%.
And I know you and we've been on stages together and we have a lot of energy, right?
Right.
When
Right.
we speak, it's like we really bring in the people and we just love sharing.
Right.
And we love what I love about speaking is I love when people have this aha moments. I
Me
don't know if
too.
you have that, right?
Yeah.
When you see like their eyes, whoop,
Right. Right. Right.
right? Like,
All of a
oh,
sudden they start writing faster. Oh
right,
my
yeah.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Or now
Yeah.
it's typing on their
Yeah.
phone,
Yeah. Or
right? Yeah.
typing or whatever.
So,
Yeah.
but that's a great thing. And I've spoken like you in many countries, different cultures, different backgrounds of people, and just finding that everybody ultimately wants to grow. The people that
Right.
show up, they want to grow. Yeah,
Yeah.
they want to evolve. They want to get to the next level in their life, and they're eager to listen. Yeah,
Right.
and they are hungry for new mind food, new soul food, new
Right.
wisdom foods, whatever you call it. So I just love that.
So,
And
so here's a question for you. You and I have been friends for a lot of years, and obviously, The Secret really opened a lot of big doors for you.
yeah,
But let's face it, The Secret was now, what is that? That's over 20 years ago.
it's 20 years this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the speakers that were involved in The Secret aren't really even speaking anymore. Some have been forgotten, they haven't really done much with it, yet others have. And certainly you're relevant. In fact, I think that your audiences has probably even grown even bigger and bigger
Oh, yeah.
since that time.
Yeah. It
So
is.
so
Yeah.
what have you done to stay relevant and sure, everyone has a success, but to keep that success going for
Yeah.
yourself, what have you done to do
Well, I
you?
think the first thing is I was one of the youngest in The Secret, so that's helpful.
Yeah, I guess. Some of them are actually retired, and even a few, like Bob, have passed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
like
fair enough.
Dennis, there are some that have passed on already. Um, so yeah, I was young, right? That's the first thing. I was 45 when that came out. So, and I was really a total unknown person at that time, right? In America, perhaps a few thousand people were aware of me, mostly VIP clients that I had.
Mm,
And I was speaking to my own students, but I did not really did a speaker speaker how you call it, journey,
right.
speaking at many events. I did not. So I think I always felt this is a long-term thing for me.
Mm,
So I am now stronger than ever. I have a huge database. I am more recognized now, I think, than I was then because I was really unknown, yeah,
right.
at that time. And it's like I have a big vision, right? My vision is to enlighten more than 500 million people. And so we definitely have done that with The Secret. But of course, myself directly, I haven't done that yet, but I have more than 2 million online students. So I have really a big audience that is very loyal to my work and that keeps studying with me because they feel like things are moving forward, but I also expand. So for example, the last few years I did a lot on Instagram. So we
Mm,
do amazing on Instagram, totally organically. We don't buy anything, no advertising. And we did last year 30 million views on Instagram alone, right? So suddenly people start asking me, Marie, how are you doing this? So now I'm
right.
speaking to a lot of women events to speak on how to go organically viral on social media. Yeah.
Great. That's great.
So sometimes topics will change. Like, of course, people know me as manifestation teacher. Of course, I'm very well known as a feng shui master. Leadership conferences will ask me a lot as I'm, a transformational top author. So people ask me that. But now, very interesting, I have a lot of events coming up to speak around how to grow organically viral on social media as a, let's be honest, plus 60 woman, right? But also a lot of people are like, my God, Marie, you have created such a media empire. You have your own online systems. You have a publishing company. You have an agency on social media. So I have like really built up a whole media empire, and people start asking me now more about that too to speak. So topics can change because you grow as a human being,
Right.
right? I can imagine, Douglas, what you spoke about 20 years ago and what
Oh
you
my
would
gosh.
speak now
I don't
about.
want to imagine about that because I've changed my mind about a lot of that stuff. I don't believe half of the stuff I used to. No, maybe I do, but certainly, it's much more complex for me now, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And the world is more complex also,
Right.
and speaker business is more complex for sure. But ultimately, I've seen people come up as speakers and
Right.
then suddenly they're gone
Right.
because there is something I've always felt you need to be very authentic as a speaker. Yeah.
Mm,
And you need to speak your word, but also you have to live your word. Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And so people start feeling right away if you speak and you live words differently, right? So your speaking and your living is different. Then people start understanding there's something off. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And so, you and I, like I said, we know each other probably for almost 20 years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't say it too much. But the whole point is, yeah, when we're together, there's fun, there's joy, we inspire each other, right? And yes, we are motivational, but we're also very inspirational. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. And we know our subject very well, or the different subjects we have. But when we speak, it's really like with so much enthusiasm and so much inspiration. And I have to be honest, lately people have been asking me, like, Marie, could you train us to speak?
right.
And I'm like, okay, another thing, right? And I've been like putting it out in the universe. I'm
Right,
like, so, and I've just been asked to help out with speaker training for a women organization. But like, I don't want to really organize this myself anymore. That's
right.
just too much. But
A lot of
yeah,
work.
it's a lot of work. But yeah, we collaborating for people to be inspired to be better speakers.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely would
Well,
love to
I think
join.
you've raised a really good point. And again, like before we started this, I was talking a little bit about the speaker mastermind we're thinking of doing. But the one thing I think that has allowed people like you and I to work together so often is that we're the same on stage as we are off. We're very authentic to our desire to help people and to be collaborative. And that's one thing I'm going to say that I have sometimes seen, and I'm not trying to call anyone out or criticize, but there are people that are very kind and showy on stage, but when they come off stage, they're not at all like that. And I think that this is something that, like, it's okay if you have this, feeling that you don't want to be as collaborative, but don't pretend that you are while you're on stage. Like that
Yeah,
authenticity will come out. And there is room in the world for people who are very stern speakers, business
yeah,
only,
yeah, for sure.
sharks, if you will,
Yeah,
but I think if a person understands kind of who they are and how they want to relate, that should be consistent everywhere,
it
right?
is.
It
I
needs
totally believe that. You
to
know,
be done.
for the last 7 years, I've been the top three speaker in Mind Valley.
Mm.
Sometimes the top one speaker, the number one speaker, depending on the event. And so the first thing that people say so many times, like when they see me on the street or before or after the conference, oh my God, you're just so accessible.
And
Yeah.
I can vouch for that. I can 100% vouch for that. By the way, the other thing that I love when I've heard you speak, I can't even count how many times, but the thing that I love is they always say that we often remember how we feel more than what the
Yeah.
information was.
Yeah.
And the reality is every time that I've seen you speak, and I should say the same feeling is off stage too. We've
Yeah.
always had fun. We've always had smiles. We always feel present with each other. And you make me laugh sometimes. You've got such good stories.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I also love about you, and I'd encourage people. This is a skill that don't take this lightly, is to be able to bring people into your stories. You
Yeah.
really have a strength with that, where when you share a story or something, I feel like I'm there with you. And I
Thank
think
you.
that this is, yeah, it's something that is an uncommon thing. In fact, one of the questions I have written down to ask, I'm not going to ask it anymore because I think this is a skill that you've got. The question is, what skills are most important for success beyond just presenting? And I think this idea of is to bring people into your world. If you can do that and have them actually present in those situations, I think that helps so many other aspects of your speaking.
Oh,
You'll sell
totally.
better, you'll have customer retention better, you'll get invited back. Like people just really like everything is connected to this idea where they genuinely feel like they're your friend,
Oh, yeah.
right?
No, I totally agree with that. And that's one of the things that my students say, like, we love your stories. Yeah.
Right.
So we love the examples. We love your story. And also, one of the things I have learned when I started speaking and teaching, 32 years ago now, was that I made like a commitment to myself
Right.
that I would always say to people also not only the good stuff, but the ugly stuff, right?
Right.
So it's like, hey, I went through this experience. Like, I remember I was on stage in Jordan, and they asked me to speak about relationships, how to have high level relationship. And I was like, okay, I can tell a lot of things, but what made it really big for me was when the day I forgave my father, when the night before he passed on,
Mm.
after 25 years of very much physical and emotional and mental abuse. And so I was able to forgive my father. So I told that story, and I was crying on stage myself. It was
Or
the first time I really shared it. Yeah. And I was crying. I was like hesitating to even come forward. It was a rough story. And I mean, literally half of the audience was crying with me. right?
Mm.
Um, but then so many people afterwards came up to me and said like, and there were people from the Jordan family, royal family, to people from all over the world had flown in. And so many people the next day called me and came up to me and said, "We just reached out to my father. Yeah,
Wow.
I reached out to my mother. I hadn't spoken to my father for 10 years because I was angry that he didn't pay me money back. And there
Right.
was this one woman, and she had told me before, it's like, I really want to buy a house. I don't know how to do it. I don't have the deposit. How can I manifest that? And so I asked them, we did a whole exercise around forgiveness. And so she called her father, and he said, I've been trying to reach you for the last few years. And she said, I know. I said, I want to pay the money back. And she said, I didn't know because she always
Right.
blocked it, right? And so ultimately, he told that he had put the money in an investment fund, the exact amount she had to pay for that house, the
Right.
whole amount of the house was there,
Nice.
right?
Nice.
So she called me, then a few weeks later, and she said, "My God, Marie, I have the house. I'm again with my father." And that was the power of the story. Now, guess what? This woman is following me, takes all my classes since that moment. Yeah, has done huge mentoring packages with me. So the whole point is, yeah, that one story, right?
Right.
Perhaps that one person, you don't know what that one person will do with you in the future, right? And so, but I always decided when I started, like, I'm going to be vulnerable as a speaker. Yeah. And if things are not going well, tell that, and then bring that again to where you want to bring them.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's authenticity and vulnerability. And I remember speaking at one of the events of Mind Valley, and they were all like the top speakers, right? Um, and I spoke at one of these events, and so then later on in Mind Valley, they always check, they do a survey of who was the best speaker, and I had, there were 2,000 people, 1,000 people gave me a 5 out of 5, yeah. So they were like, "How is that?" All these big
Right.
speakers, and they were like, "Because I told stories that just reached their hearts." Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then afterwards we had booths where people could buy things. Within an hour, everything was sold out, and the other speakers still, you know and there was a line of hundreds of people to come and see me, because I said things that were so true to their hearts, from
Right.
my heart. Yeah, speaking with my heart.
Well, I think that's the most valuable skill to have because when you speak to look intelligent or you look to impress, you're the one who's going to be the one that basically feels good about it at the end. But if you speak from a place of what the audience really needs to hear and your heart connecting with their heart, then it's a bigger community because it's more than just you now. And I think that that's something that most speakers forget. They love to hear the sound of their voice so much they forget that they're there to make a difference,
Yeah,
right?
or they're focusing on the sales, yeah,
Yes.
of that moment, of that
Yeah.
day. And I understand that, um, but I don't work like this. And I think I'm right, because my business is growing and growing every
Right.
year. Like, or people just refer to me like, "Oh, you should have Marie Diamond's app," or "You need to get her book," or like, so because people have been so touched by your presence and your
Right.
words and your message, that they don't forget that,
Well,
you know?
I think you're right. And I also think that this is one way the speaking business has evolved. And again, I'm not criticizing what happened in the past, but I think there was a day when they had these, rallies and stuff, and we're trying to sell you motivational CDs to listen to in your car and the cassette
I
tapes and
remember that
all of
time.
these
Yeah,
things, right? And so it was really a sales frenzy, and that was it. How can we sell as much stuff as possible to motivate people? And then
yeah,
we saw a shift that it's not now about sales so much as it is connection. And
yeah,
connection is the true power. And if you think about it, like we've all got devices and stuff, and you can find so much free information online,
yeah,
anyways. And so it's not really about the sales. If you make the connection, people will support you,
yeah,
right? And I personally have always enjoyed the connection anyways. I always love the feeling of leaving a room knowing I left the people better than I found them. Yeah, of course it feels good to sell lots, but that's a temporary thing, right? And I'd
Yeah, and,
rather have
and
the,
you
the
need
long
to
term.
focus on the long term,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really, yeah.
Well,
But
that
then
goes
it's
back to
also, you have to set this up too as a speaker,
right.
right? So a lot of speakers don't have this set up sometimes in the back end. Yeah,
Well, I think this is kind of what I was teaching as well before is that every student that comes in the door, I have a 5-year plan for them. It's not just like, hey, thank you for your money for these CDs. Have fun. No, no. We've got the idea that there's going to be a relationship. And by the way, at the beginning, I think this goes back to what you talked about with creating a brand, because that's what makes a difference between someone who's just there to sell, a quick program versus someone that's there to create a relationship.
yeah,
That's a brand.
that's for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I love this conversation. This is totally
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah. And by the way, I did not know we are going to have this conversation. So I have no makeup on. What is not normal for me?
You look amazing as always.
Thank you.
But do you know what? If I can be honest, your energy is always captivating, and with or without makeup or wherever you're at.
Yeah.
By the way,
Okay.
I have to tell a personal story here. As you know, not too long ago, I came by your house and we had one of my friends there, and you
Yeah.
made us dinner, and that was so amazing and wonderful.
Yeah.
And again, she's the same person while she's cooking you dinner as she is from the stage.
Yeah.
Just telling you guys all.
Yeah.
But the thing that was amazing is my friend who you'd never met before literally fell in love with you because you were so committed to seeing her succeed and you were interested in her and you were so helpful and everything else. And by the way, if she's watching this, Vivian, she's still a really good friend of mine and she's still also growing her speaking business based on a lot of the advice that you gave her that
Oh,
night.
amazing. And by
Yeah.
the way, we had so much fun with you singing and playing piano. That was so cool.
We had a good time. We had a good time.
We did. We
But
did.
but this is what friends do. And this is the point that I also kind of want to make is that now I'm doing a lot more work in the movie business, as you know. And I had a reporter ask me lately, how does it feel to have fans and this kind of thing? And I said, well, I don't have any fans. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, the truth is I only do movies that I like and that I would watch. And so if someone has seen me in a movie like that they like and they watched, we're actually friends. We're not fans. And I think that this is the thing also that translates to the speaking business. We don't have followers and we don't have friends and we even don't have customers, although they may give us a fair exchange of value for what we bring. The truth is when we truly serve someone from a place of authenticity, we really are friends.
Yeah.
And the thing that I also admire, having worked with you for decades now, is that you are genuinely interested in the success of those who come
Yeah.
looking for information from you. And I think that that's a valuable skill that we don't always see,
It is.
right?
And yeah, because you need to be not a people pleaser, but a people interest. Yeah.
Right.
So you need to be interested in people. Like I
Right.
love hearing people's story, and I always listen very clearly, and I'm a good listener. That's what all my mentoring clients are saying. Like you listen, and then after that, you're like, oh, I have a connection for you. Then I use my
Mm,
generosity of contacts, or this is a tip I need to give you. Like this is, I think, what
right.
you need to shift. So even if it's people on the street or people, that see me or after conferences or doing conferences, and they come up to me, I'm always asking, so tell me about your life. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this, and there's so many people that have cried in my arms because I'm generally there with them. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, come in my arms, right? And they cry. And I say, okay, I think this is what I would suggest you. Because I have learned that, and this is a tip I got from Harrison Ford, actually. So Harrison Ford says, when you become famous in your field, whatever field that is, your shop is 24 hours open. And
Mm,
so that means when somebody comes up to you, perhaps it's the only 1 minute in their life they will be able to talk to you, right? So that moment, be that 1 minute present. Yeah.
right.
And so I really heard him very clearly when he told me that. And I was like, okay, I need to really do that. So whenever I'm going and I'm seeing people in conferences and they come up to me, I try to keep sometimes I'm busy with someone like, can you please wait for a moment? I need to finish this, but I will definitely address you, right? So to make sure, and sometimes, the line is long, right? And but that's fine. Like I remember I was in Russia speaking for 3,000 women, and I mean, I was signing books and talking to the women for hours, I think 4 or 5 hours longer than the conference was, because we had translation and so on. But it was like, this was the only time they would ever meet me.
Right.
So I need to make sure that that time was valuable for them, not just to hear me speak, but if they had the courage, because it takes courage to sometimes come up to
100%.
speakers, right? And to
Especially if it's not
tell,
even their native language.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And so to really be present with them and to be a good listener, but also before I'm going on in a conference, I'm speaking, I'm there already hours before, I'm listening already.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
I'm
it's
listening to
it's interesting.
people.
All the events that you and I go to, I've noticed you always come early and you always
Yeah,
stay.
yeah,
You've given something here that I just want to point out in case someone listening to this didn't get it. This is really important. I'm going to sum it up this way. If you want to become a powerful teacher, it's really important that you become a powerful listener, because just like a doctor cannot prescribe medicine to someone that he doesn't know what the illness or sickness is, you need to know what their needs are. And to tell you the truth, and I'm sure you've had this happen, as I've listened to people, sometimes I've had new ideas for my content
yeah,
or my programs. Maybe I need a program for this, that
yeah.
like, because I'm oftentimes teaching what I think people want, but as soon as I listen, I can really understand not what they want, but what they need.
What do you
And
need?
and sometimes that's the most valuable thing, that they can feel understood and they can feel heard. And of course, as you're having these things, sometimes you can share these from the stage, you can share them in your programs, you can,
Yeah,
do research on the things you hadn't considered, and you just become a much more powerful teacher because you really have your finger on the pulse of what people are needing. And I
yeah,
think
and
that's so
I've
valuable.
seen this many times that like I come early, I come as soon as I can.
Right.
And people come up to me and I'm like, and they ask me a question. I'm like, if I can, I address it in on stage.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, I just was speaking to somebody and I see this person already
Yeah,
jumping
yeah,
up,
they're
like,
already
right?
it's me.
And I was like, oh, it's me, right? Um, but I also listen to the energy, right? I'm
Right.
always meditating before I go on stage with the audience energetically. Um, I'm really listening to the energy field of the space.
Right.
Like I was recently and it was like the whole day. Um, it was um, it was an audience of college students, yeah, and so they had a lot of self-help speakers at the whole conference, and I could see. I come in, I'm like the energy was so flat, but so
Ah.
flat, yeah. So and people are,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Checking their phone at the same
right,
time.
yeah. So I'm like, these are young people. So I go backstage before I go on and I said, you know, let's put up some rap, right? So like intense rap. Let's put Eminem up, right?
Nice.
And so I mean, my son does hip hop, so I know quite well hip hop world. And I
Yeah.
said, let's put that up, right? And so we put up like one of his last songs. And so I'm on stage and said, and he starts, and I'm starting to,
Ah,
dance like crazy. And I'm like, come on, get up. And everyone's going crazy. And of course, I got the audience. So I was
of course.
listening. The fact that they were flat, they were like their brain was not on anymore. And I'm telling you, I had the only one that had a standing ovation at the end.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's
right.
cool.
So because you need to also, as a speaker, not just be in your own like this is
Mm,
the way I'm going to teach. You need to listen to the audience, what is going on. I always make sure I refer to, you just have heard from this speaker this aspect, and you will
right.
have this speaker coming up. He probably will talk about this. So I always make sure there's a bridge between my speech and the other speakers. Yeah.
Neat idea.
So because that is something that a lot of people, they come in and they're on their own box, yeah,
Mm.
right? And I'm thinking, why don't you just said, hey, or I always when I'm speaking, I always ask, a good applause for the team, like or the
Oh yeah.
company. I
Yeah.
always do that because they're coming like, oh, can we have, they're so well organized. Let's give a round of applause for the people. And I mostly end if I need to, depending on, I will actually end with dancing. Right?
Oh, cool.
I'm a dancing queen now, right? I love going on stage and dancing. I'm a good dancer, so that helps.
Yeah, I
But
can't do that as well.
I know, but that's kind of the nickname I got in Mind Valley, the dancing queen. So I just, and come on, and always I do an exercise, standing up, an energy exercise, and then they're already up, and it's easier for them to give a standing ovation then. So,
You know, it's interesting that you say that because I do believe that the way I'm going to word that is engaging the audience in activities that they feel good about. And there's a few reasons I think that works really well. One, you can right away see who resonates with you and
yeah,
the people that really are your, how do they say, if they get your vibe, they become your tribe. So if
yeah,
you invite them to do something and they participate, you already know who's going to be kind of dialed into that. And then the second is, let's face it, you're right. They've been sitting there all day, no energy, clap, clap,
yeah,
clap.
yeah,
And if you
yeah,
can get them to do or have a different perspective and a different
yeah,
energy, a different state, if you will,
yeah,
then suddenly that gets them thinking different. And
it
I think
does.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of high value in that. Plus, it's authentic to you. So you
yeah,
find those who get your authenticity,
yeah.
right? So I think it's
Yeah,
great.
and I let them do a lot of exercise. We do muscle testing. I teach them
Oh yeah.
certain things, and so people are standing up and hey, connecting. That one thing, the one inside you got, just let them know. Say high five, high 10 to five people. Like
Yeah.
it's something I did not know when I started speaking. Right,
Right.
something I picked up along but it's like it resonates with me. Yeah.
Right.
So I love being on the stage. Yeah. And it's very interesting because in real life, I'm not very extrovert. Yeah. I'm more an introvert in real life. But when I'm on the stage, I'm like, oh my God, I can impact thousands of people here. Or if it's 500 people, or if it's 10 people, it doesn't matter. I can make their life changed. And so that is that drive, that fire I have, so that when they leave, they're like on a new high, they have new insights, they have new steps moving forward in their life. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's absolutely awesome. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate
So
you taking the time with me
thank
today.
you, of course.
Yeah, this is
So
great.
don't put this on YouTube. No, I'm not.
No, not going to YouTube. Not going to
Without makeup, don't do that.
No, you're
Okay.
doing great.
All right.
But I wanted to thank you for this, and there's certainly a lot of great wisdom that you shared there. And again, for anybody that's watching this, the one thing I want to share is that definitely follow Marie if you're not following her on her social media. I actually follow her Instagram as well, and there's always a lot of really good advice and ideas there, especially around energy in your life and in your home and in your situation, in your relationships, and everything is energy. And the reality is if you're not feeling it, it's not just because maybe how you're thinking, but there's an environment part of it too that you need to be aware of. And she teaches this really, really well. And of course, if you ever get a chance to hear her speak, you definitely must be there. You definitely must be there. And I can promise you it will be one of your favorite experiences that you've had. So I'm sure we'll get her involved in the future with some other things that we're doing. But I think I echo both of our thoughts saying that, if you've been called to this work, to be a speaker, a teacher, or a coach, get out there and do your best. Any
Yeah.
last words?
Yeah, so, speaking is literally engaging. And so it's engaging yourself, it's engaging the audience, it's also engaging the world to be a better place. And so it's one of my favorite things to do. And if you feel called to it, just start.
You got to do it. Cool. Take care, everybody.
Bye.